Thank you, Priscilla. Welcome to everybody. I'd like to introduce the panel for today. Myself, Patrick Nelson, Chief Executive of the Irish Football Association. On my far left, Jonathan Hall, Director of Football Services for the Football Association. Jonathan Ford, you can't have too many Jonathans in a room, is my principle. Jonathan Ford, Chief Executive of the Football Association of Wales. On my right, we have Jerome Valk, who is Secretary General of FIFA. And on my extreme right, Stuart Regan, who is Chief Executive of the Scottish Football Association. And with your permission, I will do a brief summary of the discussion that we've had today, and then we will open for questions. So, today was the 129th Annual General Meeting of the International Football Association Board, here in the Culloden Hotel in Belfast, Northern Ireland. The meeting was chaired by the President of the IFA, Jim Shaw, and it followed on from the inaugural meetings of our new Technical Advisory Panel and Football Advisory Panels, which are now part of the IFAB fabric. Those panel meetings were held in November 2014 and will be held every year moving forward. So, to the detail. We had further analysis today of what's been called the triple punishment effect of a sending off penalty and subsequent suspension from the following game for the denial of an obvious goal-scoring opportunity, or DOGSO in the more simple vernacular, within the penalty area. IFAB did agree that this punishment is too harsh, the triple punishment is too harsh, and that we must find a solution to the matter. There was a proposal put forward by UEFA, and that had a provision that included that the referee should issue a yellow card instead of a red card, and that proposal was rejected by the IFAB today. After significant debate, IFAB did agree in principle that one of the elements of the triple punishment should be may be removed, and that this element should be the automatic suspension. That's currently defined within the FIFA's disciplinary code. So where we go from here is that IFAB has tasked FIFA, its disciplinary committee and its legal committee to look at this matter, to investigate the feasibility of administering on a global level the removal of the automatic one-match suspension for offences relating to denial of an obvious goal-scoring opportunity in the penalty area that are not considered serious infringements. Subject to the outcome of that analysis by the disciplinary and the legal committees, FIFA will submit a proposal for potential changes to their disciplinary code to the March this year FIFA Executive Committee. So you can see that there is a will to move rapidly on this matter. If we move on to Law 3, the number of players, IFAB made what we think is a groundbreaking decision to allow for return substitutions in the lowest levels of recreational football. This is a really significant change to the way that recreational football could be played. It follows the success, resounding success, I think we would say, of two separate pilots that have been run over the last 2 years by the Football Association and the Scottish Football Association. And these pilots have demonstrated substantial increases in participation. So we were delighted to receive the results of that analysis and to make a positive decision on that today. Also in relation to Law 3, number of players on the field, IFAB remains of the view that 3 substitutions within football is adequate, and that we don't need more substitutions than that. However, it was agreed that the proposal for a 4th substitution in extra time, which was on the agenda today, should be assessed further by the advisory panels that I touched on earlier, the Football and the Technical Advisory Panel. So that has been referred back for further analysis. We discussed electronic performance and tracking devices today, and IFAB has approved in principle the use of such tracking devices on the condition that data is not made available to anyone inside the technical area during a match. Our next step will be the introduction of a quality program, part of the FIFA quality program, in order to categorize such devices, regulate their use, and ensure the validity and reliability of any data that's flowing from such devices before any changes to the laws of the game can be considered by IFAB. When we then touched on the potential use of video to support match officials, and we had an extensive discussion on this matter during the AGM, including feedback from the 2 advisory panels last November. IFAB decided that this topic should continue to be discussed by the 2 panels in more detail. Other topics that we wanted to refer to the panels include handling the ball, the potential use of sin bins, on which we received some information, and the interpretation of the offside law. We also had a proposal from US Soccer regarding stopping the clock and timekeeping, and that was not approved. The 2 panels that we talked about, the Football Advisory Panel and the Technical Advisory Panel, will meet twice this year before the November business meeting of IFAB in order to consider the issues that I have just talked about there. The business meeting that will take place in November is a working meeting of IFAB, and that will create the agenda for next year's annual general meeting. Next year's annual general meeting will take place in Cardiff on the 4th to the 6th of March 2016. That means that my esteemed colleague Jonathan Ford will take over chairing the 2 panels, and will work considerably on that this year. And as a final point, before we open to questions, IFAB acknowledged the contribution of William Mccrum. Many of you will wonder, William Mccrum? William Mccrum was a native of Milford, County Armagh, here in Northern Ireland. It was on his proposal in 1890, and then agreed in 1891, that the penalty kick be introduced to the game of association football. William Mccrum's grave has become overgrown in recent times, and we were absolutely delighted today, and this is on behalf of the Irish Football Association, that FIFA made a proposal which we gratefully accept, that they will restore William Mccrum's grave, or rather, I don't think Jerome will be doing it personally, but that FIFA will cover the cost of that. That shows the long-standing contribution of one of our forefathers into the game. Where would we be without William Mccrum and the penalty kick? And with that, Priscilla, I'm happy to hand over to questions.
Okay. Is this working? Yes. Okay, so please just, as usual, state your name and media organisation. We are here for IFAB, so we ask you also to ask on IFAB matters. And please do wait for the microphone as we are live streaming on FIFA.com. Thank you.
Hi, Ben Rumsby from The Telegraph. Can I ask on the 4th substitution what the rationale was there? Because a lot of people would think it was a bit of a no-brainer to allow teams to have an extra sub in extra time due to the demands of the modern game.
Thank you. I think what I said, Ben, is that we would refer this back to the panels for further analysis and debate. Substitutions have come into the game in the last, I think, 40 years in total, gone from 1 to 2 to 3, and the IFAB felt at this point that 3 is an adequate number. However, we choose not to close the door on things. What we've done is said that needs to go back to the panels for further consideration. I think any number between 1 and 11 is just one of those numbers. Where we have been in history is we've made it to 3. We think that 3 is the right number. There's no compelling rationale that we have seen to change it to 4 at this point. And as I said, we are willing to hand this back to the panels for further consideration.
Across here. In talking about video, was any reference made to the experiments that have been run in Holland and the will of the Dutch Federation to upgrade them into the Dutch Cup next season? Thank you.
To be fair, Keir, we had a long debate on the subject of video assistance, and we are aware of the work that has been done by the KNVB, and it was part of the discussion, and we took the view in the end that this is a subject that we would like to send back to the panels for further consideration at this point.
If I may, just on that work, whilst that work had been shared in provisional details with one or two of the members of IFAB, it's not been shared with either the FAP or the TAP. And I think the discussion was very much centred around if we do discuss further, it's appropriate to bring those discussions to the table so that all of IFAB is involved.
Good afternoon, Brian Swanson from Sky Sports News HQ. Question for Jerome. What's FIFA's position on the issue of video replays, and how divisive was it in there in terms of a split?
I think the first part of the discussion we had this morning was to say we should even delete replay. I mean, either we talk about the video or we don't talk about any video. So that was the start of the discussion. For your information, we have not seen FIFA the KNVB experience. It has been presented to the 4 British associations, not to FIFA, so at least we should have a look at it. It's not a rejection. I mean, we are just saying that what came out from the 2 panels is definitely not clear. I mean, there was no agreement within the 2 panels on the use of the video coming from the referees panel as from the football panel. There was not a clear understanding of exactly what they would approve or support. And that's why we said we don't reject, but we are asking these 2 panels to come out. We don't ask for additional experiment. We are looking at what's happening, and we will, based on that, decide next step what should be done.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that this topic got quite a lot of consideration. When the Scottish FA considered the Dutch proposal, there was a recognition that the technology that's being used is existing technology. The referee is currently already wired up and is already in communication with other parties. So there was debate about how much this was new technology and how much this was existing technology. We would have supported, as the Scottish FA, a move to have an experiment. That wasn't a view that was shared across the IFAB. However, we have all agreed that this is a matter that needs consideration by the panels. I think it's fair that it's a big move for football. It's a big move to actually introduce something like this in the game, and the feeling was that we needed to take our time and to actually consider whether this is actually right or not.
Martin, sorry.
Do you want me to deal with Brian first?
Yeah.
Okay. From our point of view, Brian, our position is very similar to Scotland's. I think what's important is we all recognise that there are a number of areas that need a lot more further thought and work before you start considering introducing something like video technology. We had a very good, I think, and healthy debate about those things. We've seen the Dutch presentation and where they've got to with it, and we personally, I think it's very positive. But I think clearly they need to have the opportunity to present to others, as Jonathan has already mentioned, including FIFA. And I think at this stage we all felt that the best approach was to allow the panels to have a further think about it and think about those issues, because it is going to be, if it's introduced at some stage in the future, it's going to be a really big decision, and we've got to get it right.
Just from my perspective, I think we all agree it's quite a divisive issue. It's a very interesting opportunity that clearly will be something that I will chair through the FAP and the TAP over the coming years, so thank you very much, Patrick. One of the things that I think we were all very well aware of is technology has improved. I think those at the KMVB who have been looking at this have also narrowed their definition of what they are looking at. They've certainly come closer to an understanding of the concerns that we've had in the past. And I think that they've certainly concentrated their efforts on where they can assist the referee, which clearly is a role that we have as the IFAB to try and help the referee, especially in light of the current circumstances, multiple cameras upon the field and of course 2 pairs of eyes with a couple of additional assistant referees. It makes it very difficult sometimes for the referee. That said, the decision is a very, very important decision, because one of the things that we are very well aware of is this could have fundamental changes to the way in which the game is managed by the referee. And we have seen other sports where referees do default too many times to, in this particular case, the man in the van, to the video assistant to understand what their opinion was. And we do worry that that could eventually lead to players, to managers and coaches, to fans even, demanding more analysis of the video rather than more of a decision of the referee. So it's not just about helping the referee, the decision that we have to make in the future. Our decision is the way in which football is managed on the field of play, and that is a very, very difficult decision that we will make, but a decision that we will make when we have the right information, having had the right debate at the right time.
Martin Ziegler from the Press Association. So just on the video assistance issue again, I mean, if the man in the street is probably thinking, oh, you know, here's a perfect opportunity to try this live in the matches, and yet the lawmaking body is going to delay this. It's going to be another year now before there's going to be live trials. And I think for the man in the street, they're going to be thinking, you know, what would have been lost by allowing the Dutch to trial this in a live match?
I think, Martin, if I could answer that a little bit. One of the strengths of IFAB is that you know, it has worked together for a considerable amount of time and has looked at all sorts of changes to the laws of the game. And I think, as my colleagues have said, we require a high degree of consensus on something to move forward. We require a high degree of confidence that we're making the right decision. And we feel that the right decision today for this issue of video assistance is to continue to look at this within our technical and our football panels. We introduced those so that more people could have more options to get into IFAB, to get their ideas into IFAB and to get data into IFAB. And now that we have them, we're going to use them, and we will try and use them well. And we will try and make decisions on the basis of all the information that we can pull together. And the decision we've made today is that the panels are the best place for that particular subject.
Martin, if I may just elaborate a little bit on what Patrick's saying there and support what he's saying. We shouldn't, as IFAB, just allow experiments to just be conducted willy-nilly, you know, without any control, without any parameters, without any terms of reference. That's not what we're about. We are much more proactive than we have been in the past, but it needs to be done in a proper and controlled manner. And that's why, you know, just looking at a proposal that's coming from one association and allow them to just carry on or to conduct a live game experiment is probably not the way in which we should do business. We are going to look at this in more detail. The panels will debate it in more detail. The panels haven't even had the opportunity to discuss, you know, what would be in, what would be out, you know, where does this start, where does this stop? And those are the discussions that need to happen way before any in-live match experiments are taking place.
Can I just add to that as well by saying that there's probably two areas where there is fear in terms of this particular project. One is what I call creep, i.e. how much further do you go in actually allowing technology to influence the referee's decision making. And the fact that if there is creep and the referee defaults to the man in the van, then there could be a delay in decisions being made, which could interfere with the free-flowing nature of football. So they are two of the areas of concern, and for that reason, and on the basis that FIFA hadn't actually seen the Dutch project in detail, it was agreed that the panels should be the place to go and start.
Point of clarification, please, and then a question. Stuart said that he would have been in favour of copying the Dutch system, the Dutch trial. Do we take it, therefore, and this hasn't actually been completely explained, that the Scottish were the only association within IFAB at today's meeting that would have been in favour of the Dutch experiment? That's the point of clarification before I ask the question. Is that the case?
I think on a point of clarification, Andrew, the key thing that we always need to bear in mind within IFAB is that we need 75%. So we need 6 votes out of 8 for any proposal to move forward. And this was a long debate that we had today. There were strong views expressed. It was a very well run debate, and there were certainly other views in favour. But
So can you tell us who those were, please?
Well, one moment. Let me just sort of give you the background to it still. The issue that we have within IFAB is that, as you know, we need a 75% majority to move on something. And IFAB, when it makes the decision and goes with it. So equally, we're very open to the fact that in not all circumstances will we have all 8 votes in the same place, and that's the same for any democracy anywhere. So I think it's fair to say that there was, and you know, my colleagues will correct me if I go wrong here, that there was an interest from the Scottish Football Association, there was an interest from the FA. The Irish Football Association could have said yes. I think my colleagues in Wales were less convinced, but this was not an area where we felt there was enough of a feeling to go ahead at this point. But let me re-emphasize and reiterate, what we have said we will do is take this issue to the panels and we will debate it further, and that's the strength of the way that IFAB works.
And the question... So, yeah, fine. On the question of the 4th substitution, given that this was a FIFA proposal, do we assume that it didn't carry enough support from the 4 national associations? And if that's not the case, could you explain why? Thanks.
No, but it has not carried the support of FIFA. It was not us. It came from CONMEBOL, Sri Lanka, Football Federation, and US. And we agreed, the 4 and FIFA, that it needs to go to the panels to discuss about... I mean, it's pertinent to say that you give the best of the players you have for 90 minutes, and if you have an additional 30 minutes, having a 4th substitution could be a choice. But then it has to go to the panels. Don't forget that we have been asked, the IGC asked FIFA, asked the Congress of FIFA, to change the structure of the IFAB and to make it more transparent and democratic that it was. So that's what we are doing, and that's why we want to go to the panels systematically to make sure that a report is coming from their side before IFAB is making a decision.
Can I just ask about the bigger picture on video technology? In the same way that goal line technology was on the cards, then it was off the cards, and then finally there was a glacial progression towards it before it was finally accepted. Is that the way that this debate on video technology is going? It's a question of when rather than if.
Who knows?
I think if I can just answer that possibly in the same way that I have covered the matter already. We said today that this was a subject that we wanted to get more information on, and when we want to get more information on something, we will pick up information from whatever sources we can. We're aware that the KMVB have an experiment which is not running live at the moment. There is data attached to that experiment, and we're happy to read that, as we are happy to read data from anywhere else. So we have taken the decision to move this back to the panels. We will analyse it further. We will make future decisions based on information that we've got. I don't think it's possible for us to say at this point what that decision might be or when. I think we're just happy that we have a process that we're going to work with. And as Jerome said, the IGC asked us to be more open, to be more transparent, and to have the opportunities for the world of football to bring ideas to us, and this is one idea.
So why do you say who knows? Is it in principle, do you think it's a good idea?
Personally?
Yeah.
I think it needs a lot of discussion to understand exactly what we are talking about. And again, I mean, we really talked about everything. We talked about the fact that if the referee relies on the information he's getting, is there a risk that the referees become not as strong as he is today, because he will always ask for a confirmation of any decision he has to take during the course of the game? And what's then the relationship of the referee with all the assistants he has around him, plus, as Jonathan said, this official in a van looking at the feed. So again, that's all what we talked about. I mean, we have not just talked about the issue of video, yes or no. Do we like it or we don't like it? Is it going against the game or not the game, against the referee? We really are saying it needs a level of discussion where we all understood what it would mean the day we would say yes for the video. I mean, you know perfectly, if you say yes to the video in the penalty area, it's yes to the video for all the game. I mean, it will just take few months, a year, to make sure that you use the video for all the game, for the 90 minutes plus the 30 minutes plus whatever extra time with the penalty kick. So, I mean, it's the biggest decision which would come out from this IFAB ever. And that's why it's not a decision where you can say, okay, sorry, I mean, how can you explain to the guy in the street that it's postponed by 1 year? I mean, it's more than that. It's not a question of years, it's a question of making the biggest decision ever in the way football is played.
Question for Patrick. Charlie Sale, Daily Mail. Considering Mr. McCready was quite a surprising member of the FIFA delegation, can you tell me what part he played in the discussions?
Well, it's your view, Charlie, that he may have been a surprising member. It's up to FIFA to decide who they bring to the IFAB meeting, and Mr. McCready made contributions like any other member of the meeting did.
Can you tell me what exactly he said?
Well, I don't think I recorded exactly what he said, to be honest, Charlie, but he made contributions in the same way that everybody made contributions. And we're not generally in the habit of detailing what contributions everybody made at the meeting. We're focused on the decisions that were made and the consensus and the way forward for IFAB. So individual contributions are not really ones that we normally concentrate on.
So a second very quick question. Was there any other business, or was it all to do with IFAB? Bear in mind that we've got an election coming up, and
you see the backdrop behind us, you see the cards in front of us. This is the International Football Association Board, 129th AGM. That's what it's been about.
Good morning, Mike Collett from Reuters over here. Patrick, you mentioned the rolling substitutes at grassroots and recreational level. At what kind of level would the rolling substitutes start? When you talk about grassroots, are we talking about lower league, organised lower league football in every country? Where does this kick in?
That's a great question. I'm going to ask my colleagues to join in on this one, but I'll give you a starter for 10, as somebody would have said once upon a time on University Challenge. We have agreed that in recreational football, rolling substitutes or return substitutions, and we chose the phrase return substitutions because we want the referee to maintain control of this. So rolling suggests roll on, roll off, and the referee doesn't notice it. So return substitutions, it is in recreational football only, so very much amateur, not the highest level of football in your country. In fact, if you happen to have only amateur football, so still not in that level. And just to give you an example, and I know Stuart will want to talk about this, but if I pick the FA pilot, it was done at level 11 and below in the pyramid in England. And that may well have been, I don't know, Jonathan, that may well have been the level that I once played at when I played in England, and rolling substitutes or return substitutes would have been very useful. So I think I'm going to ask Jonathan and Stuart maybe to contribute on that, because it will be a matter for each individual association to determine at what level it works within their country.
Thanks, Patrick. Yeah, I mean, for us, the pilot was very much at grassroots, so it was below, outside the National League system, so it's the sort of level that Patrick's just mentioned, probably perhaps a little higher than when he played. But what it has done for us is it's really helped drive greater participation. We've seen some really good, healthy numbers, encouraging people to come back into the game who otherwise may not have carried on playing. because they can just turn up and actually know that they're going to get some sort of game rather than sit and not sure whether they're going to get on or not. It's allowed us also to, players who are managing an injury coming back into the game, it gives them the opportunity to actually come along and play some part again. And the other thing is it's actually helped with integrity of league. So what we're not seeing so much of is teams dropping out of leagues mid-season because they haven't been able to get the team out at any particular weekend. So for us, it's been a very, very positive experience. 2.5 seasons of really good numbers, great feedback, and absolutely delighted that we were able to agree that today.
Yeah, there's not a great deal more to add from our perspective other than to say I don't think we should underestimate the significance of this decision today. We all know that football has a role to play in the health agenda. We're trying to use football as a way of keeping people fit and active, and participation in football is one way of doing this, and to allow coaches to bring on substitutes on a return basis rather than sitting on the side of the pitch on a cold Sunday or Saturday morning. We think this is a substantial move and will make a great difference to grassroots football.
Jerome, just as a follow-up clarification on the issue of the video replays, why didn't FIFA receive the Dutch proposals? What?
No idea. I don't know. And personally, I've never received any letter from the KNVB offering to come to FIFA and to meet our referees department or technical department to look at this program. So I have nothing against, but I have not received. That's it.
Does that surprise you? Such an important
I expressed our surprise when I heard that the 4 of them, they received this information. I was a bit surprised that, yes, it has not come to FIFA. It should have come to FIFA because we are at least the 5th member of the IFAB, so it would be easier to discuss on the basis that we have seen exactly the same material. But it's a fact, it has not come to me or to FIFA. But it will, I'm sure, now.
Hi, Rob Harris, Associated Press. Perhaps, Jerome, this is one for you. President Blatter was talking last year about maybe having trials of technology at this year's Under-20 World Cup, which clearly is not happening. But do you think it's now too late for any sort of expanded video technology at the 2018 World Cup? We're sort of looking much further down the line.
I have no idea. I mean, I think that if I'm correct, the decision on the goal line was just a year before, or the AGM before the Confederations Cup, and we moved quickly, found a company and installed the system at the Club World Cup and then the Confederations Cup. I mean, you know, the day the IFAB would decide to use the video, and if I'm in charge, I will make sure that the decision is implemented in the shortest time. So that's what we are doing. But for the time being, there is no need to discuss about any deadline or timeline because it's still in discussion.
And just one on substitutes. Although you've ruled out, I don't know who's best for this, although 4th substitute has been ruled out, there's some talk that maybe an extra substitute should be allowed for concussion cases. Is this something that's come to the panel's focus? Is it something you think in the future, something particularly given growing health concerns, perhaps should be looked at?
This wasn't, Rob, anything that we discussed today, but as I said, we were happy to refer the subject of substitutions back to the panels, and the panels will debate them as and when.
Okay, we have time for 3 more, or the two, just one each, and then Martin will finish.
Hi, Daniel King from The Sun. Could you just clarify, when is the earliest that this proposed change to the triple punishment rule, making it into a double punishment rule, when's the earliest that could come into effect? Does it mean that with these meetings in March, could it come into effect for the start of next season, i.e. without another full meeting of IFAB?
I'm glad you asked that question of detail because it's fun for us to try and explain that. The next piece of work has to be done by the legal committee and the disciplinary committee at FIFA. I believe a proposal will then be aimed at the March Exco. If it gets through the March Exco, then it gets the chance to be on the agenda for the FIFA Congress at the end of May, and that would mean that we have the potential to implement next season. Now, I think I have that correct, Jerome, but you'll correct me if not.
If it doesn't go through the executive committee meeting of March, then it's too late, based on the FIFA statutes, to have it on the agenda for the for the next Congress. So it's a question, really. I mean, we will, from Monday morning, speed up the process and make sure that representatives from the legal committee and the disciplinary committee are working together, have a permanent exchange with the 4 British associations, and try to finalize something before the 18th of March.
Yeah, Patrick, what was as Ben said, it was a very sensible idea. What was the actual reason that you didn't want to just push this through straight away, the 4 substitute? And is it true also that during your discussions on triple punishment, that you had to break away from the meeting because there was no decision? I know the Irish, for instance, were very keen to turn red into yellow. Was that part of the reason that you had to split up?
That doesn't sound like what we talked about. We had a coffee break in the middle of the meeting. That's a fairly normal occurrence, to be honest. I think we were there for 3.5 hours, and we're only human after all. So we had a very good debate on the whole subject. You've heard where we got to. We're happy with the situation as it is. We've got an opportunity to debate all of these issues further, and we've got the panels to do it with. On the 4th substitute, we felt that 3 was the right number for now. As I say, we're happy to refer that back to the panel, and we're happy for that debate to continue.
Last question from Martin before we wrap up.
Jerome, are you aware that in funding the renovation of the grave of William Mccrum is the man who's responsible for decades of failure of English football?
And so what?
Okay, thank you.